to Tim's point, when we teach this stuff, we'll say, discipling biblically the master plan way. It's a play on words, the master plan Jesus and the master plan evangelism. What it is and what it isn't. One of the things we say is discipleship biblically is not one-on-ones. Jesus didn't meet with the 12 one-on-one. He met on them in 3s and 12s. I have 3 kids. Sometimes I have a one-on-one with them, but most of the time we're in the car together, we're at the dinner table together, we're in the TV room together. When I encourage or correct one, the others learn by listening to what to do and what not to do by who they see getting corrected or encouraged. You see Peter and Jesus in conversations, and all the 9 are saying, don't say that. This he likes. Let's not go there. They all learned it in community. You raise a family in community. Sometimes you'll be, the only one-on-ones Jesus had was with unbelievers and seekers. Woman at the well, Nicodemus. Everybody else he met in 3s and 12s. So we say discipleship biblically is not one-on-ones. It's done in a group, depending on the size of your family, your discipleship family. I'll get to your question. So if I only have one, there'll be one. But I'm always praying for more because I want more kids. Now he said, "Be fruitful and multiply." I took that literally. I took it literally physically. I took it literally spiritually. I could never have too many kids. Certainly not have great kids. That gets to your point. We'll get to it. Discipleship biblically is not small groups. Where you have small groups, you may have no discipleship. But where you have discipleship, you will have small groups of disciples. Does that make sense? A little play on word, a little trick. Small groups is like an orphanage where you go and there's a bunch of people that the guy throws out food. He's not responsible for anybody, he's just available for them. There's a big difference between being responsible or being available. Is that right? When you say to somebody, let me know if you need anything, that's saying I'm available. What he's really saying is, please don't call me because I don't want to get interrupted. But it sounds good to say, let me know if you need anything. It's another thing to say, I'm here, please call me, I will follow up right here. I will help you on this deal if you want. He says, yes, I'm now responsible. It's a different commitment. There's a mutual commitment of responsibility. When it's availability, it's somebody just offering their help if you by chance need it. Most people don't ask for help when they need it, right? They just stay in isolation as the enemy drives them into darkness. That's why everybody needs a parent. Now, when we get older, like Ben and I and Bobby are, Tim are, we may not have a discipler. We may have a discipler, but just like when we grow up in our family, as we get older, our relationship with our physical dad changes. He goes from somebody we have to obey, somebody we always need to honor and respect because of his title and position, to somebody that we don't have to obey anymore, but it's good to be honorable and respectful of him when he has an opinion. Does that make sense? But you become to a point where you become more peers. Peers, they still have years on you and you still know he's father and I'm a kid, but you're more peer relationship. Does that make sense? It's true in discipleship. I don't have a functioning guy that I'm reporting to or is supervising me, but I have spiritual fathers in seasons of my life. Frosty for sports, Ian Bounds is dead, so that didn't fly too well. Dr. Coleman, who I'll resource if I have a question. They're now available and not responsible for me because I'm an adult already. Does that make sense? Now you might say I'm an adult spiritually too, and you are, but when you've only been in the game for a decade or 3 or 4, you're 30 or 40, odds are there's somebody who's been in the game 60 or 70 in your circles who'd be more than willing to tell you where to go and what to do and where not to go and what not to do, which would be smart for you to resource because you can still bloody your lip as a 40-year-old, right? Yeah. You can bloody your lip as a 60-year-old. So have people that you can resource, but it's nice to have somebody who's responsible for you. It means he's praying for you. He's there. He checks in. You can check with him and you know anytime you're my son in this season of your life. That makes sense? So what is too much? What's too little? I face that fact. Now, the fact is I've been doing this a long time. And when I go to a city like Tacoma, where I have lots of history, the word gets around that you're a spiritual father and people want a father because they know they didn't have a father. And when they learn that it's helpful to be when they learn it's helpful to have a father and they hear you're in town and you're meeting with men, regardless of their age, who are learning from you, then people come around or some of the groups say, I got somebody I think would like to join the family. I'm always looking for more kids. So I'll say, is he fat C? What would you tell me about him? How bad does he want it? What does he want? How bad does he want it? I'll meet with him, invite him to the group as a guest. He'll sit around the circle as we do family business. And afterwards, I'll say, what did you think? I'll get a feel for him. He'll ask him, what does he think? And I'll find out what he found out from his friend, because he'll tell him the truth, but not me. Does that make sense? And if he says to the guy who invited him, who's one of my sons, who understands how we do business in the family, and he says, I thought it was all right. I'm not looking for that guy to join my family if he thinks it's all right. I want him to say, whoa, I want some of that enchilada. That guy I want in the family because he wants to be in the family. Because it's costly to be in the family. It costs me more than it costs them, but it does cost them. That makes sense. It's a costly commitment. Don't flinch on that. Don't make it easy for people to come in. If it's easier for them to come in, it's going to be easy for them to go out. Just for the record. So, but you'll learn that from your discipler when you let him know your plan and he's in the process. He might say, you need to back off a little bit or back up a little bit or back forward or whatever. Does that make sense? Because you're always walking with him. Because he wants to be with you and you want to be with him. So I had at one time 23 guys in my sleep. Now here's the facts. If I only have one kid, would I have more time and attention for the one? But that doesn't stop me from having two, right? But you reach a point, you might, where you got 3 or 4 or 5 and you feel like, I feel like I'm juggling. Now, the same meeting I have with one, I can have with 15. Does that make sense? So the meeting isn't different. But I do got to keep in touch and keep track of and that. But I do group text, I do group email, I do group polo. So once again, I parent as a group. But some of those individuals do have needs and situations for me to involve in. And if I found there was a point that I'm really a little out of control, then I would probably feel like I need to stay. Here's the spot I got it. You're going to appreciate this. How can I turn down a kid? Kid might be 43. How can I turn down a kid who's fatsy and wants some of this enchilada? I just felt like God have mercy on me. Help me figure out how to juggle 15 guys or 12 or 18. Help me figure out how to juggle it. But I don't want to turn down somebody who wants to be with me, who I want to be with. Because I want more kids, because I want more grandkids, and I want more great grandkids. So help me do it. It's probably no different than somebody who's got physical kids and he's had 5 and they want more kids and then they have 6. And they're trying to figure out, can we afford it? You know, is there going to be less personal attention when there's more? Yes, because you got to split the deck. But the reality is, because you have a family raised in a group, you're not having to have 6 meetings or 7 meetings or 8 meetings. You have 1 meeting and you're just responsible for a number of people. But why is 15 too much? You're responsible for a team of what?
32.
So 32 is where you're at right now?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a small squad. How many?
We'll be at 95 or
95. And you'll be what? What you'll be in the fall?
75.
Okay, what are you being?
We'll be about 90.
You're responsible for 90. Okay, so you're thinking to yourself, I don't think I can disciple more than 3 or 4. You just said you're responsible for 90. Are you responsible for 90? You're responsible. You're not just available for 90. You're responsible for 90. So when I think about that, I think I can be responsible for 50 or 60. I'll figure it out. And if I need help, I'll invite somebody to the equation. Now, I'm not the shell answer man. I'm not the answer. So I want to give them to my kids who need their own disciples. Does that make sense? So if Eric wanted my group and I didn't know him well, and if Al knew him well, and he wanted to come in the family, I said, Al, you disciple Eric. Eric can come into our meetings also, but you're his discipler. He's just here because I want my grandson in there and you want him to. So one of my disciples came in one time and said, can I bring my guy to the group? Because he felt like, I don't know, Scotty, how long you're going to be here, which was true because I ended up leaving months afterwards. So I want him in our family, and I'll also have him in my family. It's no different in the nuclear family when you have Christmas as a family and you also go to your parents for Christmas. Does that make sense? So in a sense, there's a window of time when your parents get older and you get more kids that you don't go to your parents every Christmas or every Thanksgiving because your family's grown too much. And there comes a time where my disciple, who's brought his disciple, now has not 1 disciple, but he's got 6 disciples, and he doesn't have time for 2 meetings a week in discipleship. And frankly, he's been with me long enough, and he's got his own family. So get out of the house. I want them out of the house when they got a lot of kids. They need to get out of the house, right? So when our kid's in the house living there when he's still 27 or 30, that's not sin. It's not wrong. It's like, at some point it's time for you to move on, right? I've never had to flush anybody out. They flush out on their own because life circumstances and seasons change the dynamic. Either I move, they get a different job, their family gets too big, they have a new baby, literally. Does that make sense? I just want more. I want more, and it's easy for me to give new family members to my existing disciples because they got one eye and this guy's got none, or they got two eyes and this guy's got one, so they can feed him because they see better. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Hear me? The land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So even my new disciple has one eye. So if somebody comes in who has no eyes, he disciples the guy with no eyes till he has one eye. And the one-eyed guy, I disciple till he has two eyes. And when he has two eyes, he can take on anybody. So my family, just like in a nuclear family, when my boys got to be older and we had a baby, I could trust him because he's 15 or 18 or 21, that Riley can stay home with her brother. Does that make sense? In a nuclear family, we do the same thing. When the children get over, they do the babysitting for us. We don't have to be there with the child. But we don't do it when the child is 6. And I don't have somebody disciple somebody when they got one eye and this guy needs more than one eye. Does that make sense? But in your group, you're going to have some that are older in the Lord and some that are new in the Lord. And so you just realize the dynamic is I need my guys to have guys. And if new guys want to come into our community, I'm going to give them to my guys because my goal is to work myself out of a job, not have a bigger job. Does that make sense? So the number thing for me, I just feel like I don't want to turn anybody down if they want to be there. If they're Fat C, that's my vetting mechanism. And they want to be there, I want them there. And if I know I'm going to be around for a definite period of time, meaning not indefinitely, then I want to be with them, even if it's my grandson, because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be there or they're going to be there. So I want to impact. Does that make sense? It's no different in coaching. When I have players, I want to be with my veteran guys, but I want to make sure I invest in the young guys. But I want my veteran guys to invest in the young guys, of which I'm just a supplement. Does that make sense? So figuratively speaking, the seniors and juniors disciple the freshmen and sophomores. And when you decide up a discipleship culture, your incoming veterans are available then to come alongside the incoming freshmen who want to be discipled by an upperclassman. Bobby played at Arizona State. He went in as an incoming freshman and started. Good football player, right? It's kind of a big deal. When Bobby was there, if a veteran guy, who was a guy when you were a freshman, that was a great player that was a senior or a junior when you were young?
Tim Peterson, inside linebacker.
So a guy named Tim Peterson. If when Bobby came out, Tim had been discipled, that we come along and serve the young. And if Tim Peterson, and he knew who Tim Peterson was, in a sense, came out and he sat by his locker on the first day of the first week. He said, "Can we have lunch together and hang out a little bit?" What would you say? Jeez whiz, right? These young kids are looking to feel safe and comfortable. They're dying for somebody to spend time with them. They don't know how to say it. They don't want to be a weirdo. But if somebody who's respected says, "Hey, you want to get coffee? You want to have lunch together? Do you want to meet weekly?" When we vet them, when they come in and they say they want somebody to disciple them, I find the guys that we've developed as disciplers, and they parent my new sons as my older sons, just like my old son babysits my young daughter. Does that make sense? You keep the food chain going by feeding it. You feed it by bringing in fits to the program as best you can, and you develop your upperclassmen disciple younger players, so everybody who wants, so want to, not a have to, is being discipled and discipling at the same time. So at Greenville, we started, Josh was part of that group. I probably met with 18 guys in the spring. I left at Christmas, so you wouldn't have been part of that.
You're talking about the 5 a.m.
I don't remember. I didn't meet it. I met in the morning, but it wasn't
6
that.
a.m.
Whoever that was. It might have been Eric. So I met with about 18 guys. I looked who were the Fat C guys in my roster. I made a pitch. I invited them into a discipleship relationship. I gave them the what, why, and how, real simple. I let them know the cost. We met at, let's say, 6 in the morning until 7:30, and we made 18 players came forward, which was good. That's a good traction. Good traction, right? And so I met and started discipling them and giving them an opportunity to invest in the young guys who are going to come in the program. That's why continuity is a big thing. If you're only somewhere all the time, 2 or 3 or 4 years, you don't get the continuity to develop the culture unless somebody comes in afterward that replicates the culture. Does that make sense? So Where there's discipleship biblically, you'll have small groups of disciple makers, but this is not small group ministry. This is disciple biblically. Okay, so if I'm Anthony or Eric, I'm going to get with my staff and say, okay, guys, here's where we're going. We're going to start a discipleship culture. I'm just learning from whoever, could be me, could be somebody else, how to do this. So we're going to walk together. I'm not your discipler. I'm learning this, but I'm just going to be the facilitator as we grow in disciple making, because we all are going to adopt the players on our team when we make an invitation to disciple them. So you got 50 players in your team or whatever it is right now, or 90, whatever you're going to be. And you're going to go to the veteran guys in the spring, because you can. And you're going to say, we're going to begin making disciples. This is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like. You have an intro meeting. You give them a couple things that they can look at on my YouTube clips or some documents, just to acquaint them, give them Born to Reproduce, something to fish a little bit. If anybody's interested, this is what we're looking for. This is not favorites. This is not going to give you more playing time. It's okay if you don't want to do it. I want to invest in people who want to walk with God for a lifetime, finish strong, and reproduce and multiply. And if you'd like to do this with me in an intentional, regular, strategic relationship, I want it. Who's interested? 17 guys raise their hands. You got 7 guys. You draft them. I'm exaggerating. You find out if these coaches have a connection uniquely with a player, they'll begin them. If not, we'll just assign people around. So you share the load. Some guys got 2, some guys got 3, and you start reproducing with the kids what you just worked on for a month or 2 to get your bearings about what it's going to look like for us. Then those guys start praying about their disciples. Some are going to be in the team, some are going to be in the dorms, but for sure they're going to be the disciple makers for the incoming freshmen who you come in and going to have a meeting with and explain it and said, would you like to meet with a older veteran player who's going to walk with you if this is what you want? Does that make sense? So in a church, I talk to the pastor, he appeals to the staff. If they kind of don't want to, and I'm trying to build a culture, then they kind of need to go. You hear me? I'm not mad. It's just, it's how we're going to do business. And it's a want to, it's a have to, not a want to for the staff. It's a want to, not a have to for the players. Does that make sense? Or you can decide if you want. If you ask me, Cass, I got 7 coaches, 5 want to do it, 2 don't. Why don't they want to do it? They just don't think it's a big thing. Bye. They just had a new baby and this is a tough season right now. Okay, cool. Do they want to? We just got to wait till they're. That's cool. Does that make sense? I'm looking for their heart. If they don't want to be obedient and make disciples, I don't want somebody on the boat not rowing. I definitely don't want somebody in the boat rowing against me. Does that make sense? So they're here voluntarily and they can leave voluntarily, and I'm not mad that this is where we're going and I'm in charge of the ship. And you're welcome to come along for the ride, but if not, I understand completely. Let's call it a day at the end of it. That's what I would do. Because the kids are going to get a mixed message if you got to have an in and out with your staff. This has got to be a commitment. It's got to be a want to, a have to. Make them want to. That's all I'm saying. Make them do it until they want to. Make them want to. And if they never don't want to, you feel like you're getting resistance from a staff member because he doesn't do that. He wants to do general stuff. That's fine. Then I have to decide in my heart if I feel comfortable with that. Right now, on top of my head, I'd say no, personally for me. Just like buying. I'm not going to take in a guy who kind of buys in. I'm not looking for a seeker who's curious. I'm looking for somebody who's committed, or I can't afford him to be up front as the leadership of our team with a different vision. When I'm facing supernatural forces, I need everybody rowing in the same direction. So have less coaches, but make sure they're on the same page. You can get by. You aren't going to lose a game because you've got a front 7 coach instead of a D-line coach and a D. I promise you. And if you do, so what? Pray for another coach and somebody will join you the next year. But if you compromise fit with players and you compromise fit with staff, you just put bullets in the gun. It's hard enough facing supernatural forces, but when you got a little leaven in the lump, it is not going to go well. I'm just telling you. And everybody won't do that. I'm telling you right now. I'm saying it to you. And you're saying, I hear that. But when you get that spot and you need a linebacker coach, your bundle is going to get tight and you're going to get the best available prospect. Because you're afraid of losing the game if we don't have somebody responsible. Better yet, do what Frosty did and teach your 100 players how to coach each other. So you have 100 coaches. That's why he never worried about it. He taught his coaches, he taught his players how to coach each other. He empowered them, he educated them, they understood it. When we won the national championship in 1993, the offensive line did not have a position coach. There was no human adult with them. Every day they went to fundamentals period or worked pre-practice or whatever, they were there themselves coaching each other. He had empowered them, he educated them. Occasionally somebody would stop by. They finally asked me about the 11th week if I'd watch film with them because they had no coach there watching film with them. This is a true story. So we won the national championship this year. I start maybe week 8. They said, could you watch film with us? Just coach us up on that. So I did. So I'd be in there, we'd go watch it all together. We don't grade. This is philosophy. Grading takes a lot of time. There's a lot of stuff that takes a lot of time. In my opinion, is by experience, is it ain't the difference between succeeding and not succeeding. It just takes a lot of time that we don't have. It takes me away from the family priorities, for the record. For something that everybody does is if, but you do what you got to do. I'm just telling you my opinion. All I know is I was there and we didn't do it, and we won a lot more than you ever will. So anyway, we're there, and it's the national championship game. It's the national championship game. True story. And I'm watching the semifinal game with the players, and we're going player by player, all 5 of those guys, every play the whole game, and they were freakily flawless. And I went to our defensive coordinator, who was Frosty's longtime 30-year assistant, and Paul was 80 there also. And I said, Paul, they don't even have a coach. They're coaching each other. I just watched film, and they were flawless in their technique and fundamentals the whole game. And his comment to me, because this is their philosophy, was, what does that say to you about the power of necessity of coaches? It tells you that players, we don't give them a high enough credit. If you empower it and you coach them up, I'm not saying just throw out the ball and ask them to do it when they're young or immature, but I'm saying develop them to coach each other even if they have a coach. So they don't have to have a coach. Otherwise, they stand around and wait for the coach to come out before they start practicing. I know what it should look like. I may not be able to do it, but I can tell you what it should look like. And I can watch my buddy do it and know if he's this or that or this or that. Because I've seen it 500 times. Because I've been in the program a couple of years for a fall and a spring and a fall. Does that make sense? And so empower them to help each other so your pants aren't down if you end up without a coach or you get sick or whatever. So when people talk about we need 9, we need 1 for every position, I say you don't. What you need is people who fit. And if that's 3, 6, or 9, go get them. But you don't need more people there that are dead weight philosophically, because your least problem is the scoreboard. Your biggest problem is culture and vision and mission and being on the same page. And that takes 3 to 5 years in our experience, everywhere. If you're fortunate, it'll happen less than 3. If you're just some bad cards, it'll take more than 5. But wherever we've been, we've learned if you want a culture flip and you do the right thing in the right way and stay at it, it'll take 3 to 5 years. Even if you walk into a climate that's really good. Now you're fortunate because you may in a couple years get a culture shift because they're pre-wired at some level, according to you, right? So good for you. When I heard the story about that, I said, you got all those guys buying in and nobody's really offering resistance. Be glad, because that ain't normal. You get it? Okay. So we would, if I was in a pastoral staff, when pastors come to me and say, what do we do? I say, head pastors say, this is the vision. Get all the staff together who are in pastoral shepherding roles. Say, this is where we're going. This is a have to, not a want to. I'm going to walk with you through it. And then we're going to start walking through the congregation, educate the congregation, make a pitch to the congregation what's about, give them opportunities to do education on the side because we're trying to find out who wants it. If you give him the Born to Reproduce book and you ask him to read it and he doesn't read it in a week, that's not a good sign. When you give them some video clips of teaching or you give them some documents and you ask them to get back with you a couple of days and they haven't, they don't have a reason, it's not a good sign. You understand? I'm looking for guys that really are faithful. They do what they say. When they say it, they follow up. And if they don't, they ask forgiveness. Available. They don't have time, they'll make time. Teachable. They come off like they want to learn, they want to grow, and they act like they don't know everything. Most important is the team. courageous. They understand that if you are discipled, you're going to disciple somebody else very soon. We say within a month. Why do we say that? Because if we don't say that, what we found is they don't disciple because they're afraid of failing or whatever the case may be. So we make them do it. We make them do it in the homework. They go to guys in the dorms, we make them do it with people who don't know. They practice the Big Ten, teaching it and doing it. So an example would be, they go up to Tim, and Tim's in the dorm, he's down 2 doors down, he said, Tim, I'm in this group, I meet with some men in the morning, and we got to memorize scripture, and I got to quote a scripture to somebody, do you mind if I just quote the scripture? So he says, Romans 3:23, for all sins, all authority. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. So Tim, this is backdoor evangelism, backdoor discipleship. Tim's unsaved, he's thinking, what was that about? He thinks, right? If he is saved, he's saying, you meet with guys and we're who those guys, tell me what that's about. I'm backdoor discipling. We're not in a relationship. I'm approaching him to practice my homework. He's an unbeliever or a believer. I either memorized the verse with him or I taught him tacos. Got that? Prayer, Bible reading, Bible memory. I sing the Bible. Yeah, I learned this corny song. It's a weird song. You got 2 minutes. I had to learn this song about the books in the Bible. Can I sing it to you? That'll break fear, right? If he isn't willing to do that, he ain't going to be in a game when the bullets start flying. So get them in a position where you know they're not going to die, but it'll cost them a little bit of courage. Okay? Give them a chance. Give them a chance. You let them know on the front end so they know what they're signing up for. Then when somebody comes in the group or a player says, I'd like to join, then we give him to somebody who already exists that's 1 week or 3 weeks or 3 months ahead because they've been in the community. Does that make sense? That's what I would do with your teams. Disciple your coaches, have them disciple players that want to, encourage them, I shouldn't say that, make them backdoor, role play their homework to the community. We have a diagram called circles where you write 3 or 4 or 5 names in a circle. Who are my friends? Who are my family? Who are my dorm mates? Who are my hobby guys that love the Vikings? Who are my, whatever the thing is be. And they start having a list of names that they can figure out, are they unsaved? Then I'm going to pray for evangelism and do the 5 questions on them. Are they saved? Then I'm going to pray that the Lord smoke out of them wanting to meet together to be disciples. Does that make sense? So I want you to come away feeling like I can do that. Is there something I said that you don't think you can do, those of you who are overseeing stuff? Just let me know. My job is to break the lie that you can't do it. My job is to break the lie that you don't have what it takes. This is my job, is to break ignorance with education, to break unbelief with the math, to break fear by saying, I'm going to walk with this deal. It's going to be okay. And the cost, I can't break yet. You got to make a decision about that. So there we go. Questions? We got 10 minutes or 12. Questions about anything about anything. Go.
I was curious how you stay away from, oh my gosh, I asked you the question, told me to come back to it. The legalism, right? Crusty, the to-do list, like you just, I feel like I would constantly going over it to like the.
Here, I can answer the question.
I guess.
So practicing the fundamentals of the faith is not legalism. It's like saying, I don't want to block and tackle practice too much because I don't want it to end up being kind of too rigid. You're going to get killed. So what's blocking and tackling? That's what we're going to do. So Ray Lewis doesn't say, I got it down. I've been all pro 3 years. I don't need to do linebacker drills, work on my footwork practice. Ray is saying to, what's his name, the cat? Singletary. When Singletary comes to coaching the Ravens, Ray, you know a little about him if you read about him, says to Singletary, you've been where I haven't been. He was all pro as much as Singletary was. I need to learn from you. Can you teach me? That's humility. Does that make sense? He's good not because he was innately good. He's good because he had talent, then he had hunger, and he had a learning heart, and he wanted to be better. Really bad. For the wrong or right goals irrelevant. He wanted it, and he wanted it bad, and he found somebody who was willing to help him, and that's a perfect match. That's why we're praying that our players want to obey God, want to be a man of God, want to give himself away, want to die to himself, want to reproduce. and I'm talking about it, they're reading about it, I'm doing it, and you're praying, and they end up leaning in. And then they are part of a birth process, they lead somebody to the Lord, or they disciple somebody who's moving forward in the faith. Because once, parents, everywhere in the country, the world, I'm sure, what are your special days? They generally say their marriage and the birth of their children. Is that right? That's biblical. And it's also biblical spiritually. That when you marry union with God, that's a special day. And when you birth or adopt, because most of the stuff I do is adoption. I work with guys that are already saved, 99%, 90. I might have led, I don't even know how many people I've led in the Lord that I disciple, but not many. I disciple orphans that are converted and they've been a believer for 1, 5, or 30 years and they just never were parented. They don't have any fundamentals. They know they need help. And so they say, will you help me? They might be 50, they might be 15. Whatever, it doesn't matter. If they want help, I want to help them. Why? Because I'm a shepherd. And shepherd, well, we're sheep. You'll know you're a discipler when your spiritual sons matter to you at some supernatural level as much as your physical sons. As long as you see your physical kids more, your offspring, than your spiritual kids, they will smell that they're a job and not a relationship at some level. It's not sin. I'm just saying, Josh knows that if he needs anything, I will be there, don't you? He knows that. When I look at my sons, I married a widow. They're not my sons according to the law of the land. They call them stepsons. They couldn't be more my sons. I don't even know how that would work. They know I'm their dad. They see me as their father. The world calls them stepsons. When people say, oh, you're the stepfather, I get offended. It's like a weird thing. It's a weird thing. It's not a step. Whatever that stereotype is, that I don't want any part of that thing. They're my kids. They're my kid. He's my kid. He's my kid for life. He's got his own life. He checks in and out because we're adults now and he's got his own life. But if he needs anything, he knows, just let me know what I got to do and I'll solve it or I'll find somebody who will. When they feel that, when they feel that's what you're about, it changes everything. It's like a player who knows he's loved by a coach and the player feels like, I'll do anything for that guy. When you've created that kind of culture in your team, you're dangerous. You're dangerous for the kingdom and you're dangerous in terms of closing the gap between your potential and your performance. Because whatever you ask them, they will do. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. When somebody feels, this is not a sport deal, it's just a great opportunity for it to happen. When somebody feels the additional love of God, the unconditional love of God, through a human, they taste that and they feel grace and mercy when they know they're flawed and yada, 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 it changes them. When a player knows that a coach will do whatever it takes, it is so foreign. He'll never forget that guy. I got 3 players that have named their kids Kess. You know what that feels like to me as a coach? I was in their life for little Derek Robinson. We were together 3 years, right? And a guy at Trinity, I just was in and out of Andy's program. It's not because I'm Johnny Special. I just tried to give it my best shot as a man of God and care about him as best I know how and shepherd him with integrity of heart. And they felt compelled to name their kid my last name. One of the closest guys they called named his kid Kessler. That's not even a name. I don't even know how he sold it to his wife. I don't know how that works. Well, we're in a relationship too, so I know how that works. You understand what I'm saying? This is what happens when you have God's heart of taking care of his children as if they're your own. Just like you want a babysitter who babysits your young kids as if they're their own. Wouldn't you want that kind of babysitter? We're all looking for that old lady that loves our kids and it's just like the grandmother, even though she's not blood, right? That's what we're looking for babysitters. Somebody who this matters to them a lot. is where we want to, that's what God's looking for. People that he can send his kids to take care of them and make sure they don't shoot themselves or somebody else. And we get an opportunity to be part of this process. If you get into this stuff and you stay at it, do the right thing the right way and stay at it, and you stay bearing some fruit, you will never go back to the other stuff. Nothing will even interest you other than having more kids, raising kids, and keep in touch with your kids. And the cool part about discipleship is there's no limitations in numbers. I got sons all over the country and grandsons and great who I never met. I don't even know. I get an outreach email or I meet somebody who says that they were by this guy. It just warms my heart, right? It will yours too, because that's what you're made for. You're made for being fruitful and multiplying. And when you take on that responsibility and it costs you your life, it's a trade that always bears more fruit than whatever it costs you. How many healthy parents would say, yeah, I had some kids, but if we didn't have them, I'd give them back. That's sick. It's almost right. We laugh because it's so sick. It's not even sick. It's so funny because it never happened with anybody of a right mind, right? That he made that to be that way. He made us to feel that way about our offspring. The trick is, can we feel that way about our spiritual offspring who are not our blood? That's the trick in discipleship. When you have that heart of a shepherd, you are now a disciple maker. And I promise you, God will trust you, and you'll more have kids and offspring than you'll ever have sands of the seashore. I mean that because I've seen the math. I've seen the math. I had no idea what I was doing. It was 5 years of just scrambling around, figuring out an operating system without having anybody to talk to. And then I read a book, and then I met a guy, and then stuff started happening. And then I moved from addition to reproduction, and reproduction became multiplication. And now it's like, it's viral. It's viral. And you get it. It's so staying cool. And then coaching becomes the vehicle. And there's no better one in the country. Whether it's youth coaching, college, high school, whatever. Wherever there's a fishing pond, where there might be fat sea people, I want to be. Because I know I got the best faith history of the world. I got supernatural power and authority to put it out there as best I can. And the laborers are few, but the harvest is plentiful, and they'll all jump in the boat. The right ones will. The ones he wants. Right? Is that good? Any other questions real quick?
You talked to me a little bit about training camp and onboarding and creating that sense of culture.
With the new kids, freshmen?
Yeah, it's the
Oh, yeah. So what Frosty did, this is, Ben, you'll get a kick out of this. I don't know where Frosty got this stuff from. The guy was, I just answered the question. So first day of football, when everybody goes, so at Arizona State, they went to, where'd you guys go? The notorious place.
Arizona and Payson, Arizona.
So they went to a place where this Arizona State under Frank Kush, who's a legendary guy. Legendary in coaching circles in that era. He took his team up to a place that was hot and dry, and they isolated them in cabins, and they had a meat festival and beat each other to crap as he develops his team. And they were very good, productivity-wise. Tremendous history. That's how they got into the Pac-10. They were in the WAC, and they ended up playing Nebraska in a big-time game, had a big-time win, and it propelled them. And here we are. So bottom line is, when everybody else is doing football, because Frosty knows the best way to build a team is not through schematics, he took his team. So we come in, this is literally what happened. I've been to 12 breakaways or more. He brings them in on a Thursday night. They all meet and greet. Friday morning, they do their testing till noon. They all get in cars and they drive 3.5 hours away to the Oregon coast to a Young Life, that's a ministry, lodge that houses about 80 people comfortably, but you can fit 100 in there if you have people sleeping. And they all come there, all incoming freshmen and all the veterans go there. And for 3 days, all day Friday, all day Saturday, and Sunday till the afternoon, post-lunch, they just build relationships and party. When I say party, they sing songs, they do skits, they get into huddle groups, They create little teams. He cross-pollinates them by age and by position. They have contests. We go on the beach and do rope pulls and speed golf and tug of war. No footballs, no football talk, no conditioning, nothing. It's what I call anti-football. It's what you want to do with your teams. You want to have some times that has nothing to do with football. That's when the best hay is made in terms of relationship. So you invite them over to the house and they just eat and laugh, and you maybe put on a video of something funny or fun or something cool, or you invite them to a WWE pay-per-view dealy bob, or you guys go out and golf, where you take off your coach hat and you're one of the guys and you're having fun because you're a fun guy. And they can't believe that a coach is like that, which endears them to you right off the bat. So he wasted, you only have so many days, or 2 days or 3 days before the season. He wastes, in the world's eyes, 3 days where we could get better on the football field. And he took them to build culture so the freshmen can get enculturated to the shtick, and the seniors and juniors can serve the young, that we can have fun and build relationships and get to know each other and sing their fight song and get embarrassed and eat and stay up late and watch movies and go get a 2, and we'll have breakfast at 10-ish, and then at 10-ish we'll eat, then we'll go out to the beach and we'll swim and we'll do contests and we'll keep track of scores and all kinds of stuff. It was like the funnest thing in the history of the world. Can you imagine a football program where you couldn't wait for the start of training camp? That's what I got dropped into. It was like, I hated training camp, whatever that 2 weeks was at 2 days, my whole life. Dreaded the start of it. And here I go to a place where we can't wait because we're going to be together and make memories. And then you come back Sunday night, and on Monday you start practice, and we're in shorts or shells or God knows what. All I know was you wanted to be there, you wanted to run around, and we knew each other super well after 3 days of intense relational team building done back door. Does that make sense? He didn't say we're here to build a team. He just built the team by integrating them together and then having them do fun and contests and competitions. And the competitions, sometimes it smoked out their flesh, right? So we'd have incoming guys that came in and realized you don't bark at the refs, the coaches are the umps. And they make bad calls on purpose because they're trying to smoke out how a kid responds when a call doesn't go his way. That becomes an educational moment. It was genius. It was genius. Happy players play better. Healthy players play better. He created a culture where players, you can't control their happiness, but he can create a culture where they can be pretty appreciative that this is not normal. Does that make sense? But
This is more of a question. I love that idea. Can any coach in here imagine in today's day and age trying to do something like that with Twitter, and then all of their high school teammates seeing that they're in camp and that they just had 7-on-7? You guys see what I'm saying there?
you're just saying comparison program.
Yeah, because again, not us. Yeah. It sounds like a great idea for culture, but then you have 40 freshmen that all have 4 or 5 buddies on other teams.
It's great recruiting, if you want to look at it that way, absolutely.
So I'm saying positive for the kids who want that, but also now if we lose week 1, is it because coach was over there having us play tug of war instead of learning how to run a post?
Hey,
or just
you're gonna face that. We faced it at Greenville.
kids now it's just so
Yeah.
crazy like that.
Yeah.
At Greenville, they came away my first year. I mean, it was just tough sledding. They just felt like I didn't care. I didn't care about it because we were not good. The guy before me signed us up for a Division II game. So here we are, one of the worst Division III schools in the country. And my opening game was against a Division II team that Rod Smith and the Hall of Fame, the Broncos played at, Missouri Southern. Thank you very little. I'd have made 7 or 10,000, and that's a pretty nice little bump for little baby budget. But we got it handed to us, and it is what it is. My point is, I'm recruiting for fit. This is where also coaches have trouble. Because they want to win and they know they need to have players that have some capacity to be competitive, whatever their league. They compromise fit for talent. They get guys that I think they'll come around. They're a good guy, etc. This has nothing to do with Jesus. Nothing to do with Jesus. Public school, I have the same conversation anywhere as that. Just because a Jesus guy doesn't mean he wants this philosophy. I promise you that. And more than enough guys. I had a young guy come up to me probably the 3rd or 4th week, a really nice Christian kid from Texas. He said, Coach, he said, if we don't start winning, I don't think guys are going to buy it. I said, if you don't buy in, we ain't going to start winning. So you make the call because I'm going to be here a lot longer than you. And you like Christmas, which It happens. Nice kid, Christian kid, just wanted to win. I understand. I understand. It doesn't move me, but I understand.